Some plants look absolutely beautiful at the nursery. The packaging is appealing, the flowers are gorgeous, and the price is right. But some of those plants are going to cost you far more than what you paid for them, in time, money, damage, and regret. Today we are going over 14 garden plants you should never plant unless you are prepared for serious trouble. Some of these are invasive, some are toxic, some will destroy your property, and a few will do all three. Let's get straight into it. Number 1. English Ivy. English ivy is one of the most popular ground covers in the world, and it is easy to see why. It is evergreen, it spreads quickly to fill bare ground, and it gives gardens that classic lush, old-world look. Gardeners love it for covering fences, slopes, and shaded areas where grass refuses to grow. But here is the problem. English ivy does not stop. Once it establishes itself in your garden, it spreads aggressively across the ground, smothering every plant in its path. It climbs trees and weakens them structurally by adding weight, trapping moisture against the bark, and blocking sunlight from reaching the leaves. Over time, trees covered in ivy become unstable and far more likely to fall. On top of that, ivy creates a thick mat on the ground that becomes a perfect shelter for rats and other pests. In many parts of North America, English ivy is now classified as an invasive species. If you want a similar ground cover effect without the trouble, consider native Pachysandra or creeping jenny instead. Number 2. Mint. Mint is one of those plants that almost every gardener wants. It smells incredible, it is useful in the kitchen, and it grows easily. That is actually the core of the problem. Mint grows too easily. Most varieties of mint spread through underground runners called rhizomes, and those runners travel fast and far. What starts as a small patch in your herb garden can take over your entire bed within a single growing season. It will push out every other herb and plant around it. If you plant mint directly in the ground without containment, you will be pulling it out of places you never intended for years. The roots go deep and break easily, so every small piece you leave behind sprouts a new plant. The safe way to grow mint is in containers, or to bury a solid barrier at least 12 inches deep around it. If you are not prepared to do that, mint will become a permanent problem in your garden. Number 3. Running bamboo. Bamboo has a dramatic, architectural look that makes it very attractive for privacy screens and statement plantings. And it grows incredibly fast, which sounds like a benefit. The issue is that there are two types of bamboo, clumping and running. Running bamboo is the one you need to be extremely careful about. Running bamboo spreads through underground rhizomes that can travel several feet in a single year. It pushes through soil, under fences, across property lines, and even through the foundations of buildings and paving. Once it is established, it is extraordinarily difficult to remove. The rhizomes go deep and spread wide, and any small section left in the soil will regrow. There are documented cases of running bamboo causing thousands of dollars in structural damage to driveways, patios, and foundations. If you want the bamboo aesthetic, choose a clumping variety instead. Clumping bamboo expands very slowly and stays manageable. Number 4. Butterfly bush. The butterfly bush looks like a dream. It produces long, colorful flower spikes that genuinely attract butterflies and other pollinators. It is drought-tolerant, low-maintenance, and blooms abundantly. Garden centers sell it widely, and it is marketed almost as a pollinator hero, but the reality is more complicated than that. Butterfly bush is not native to North America or Europe, and while it attracts adult butterflies for nectar, it does not support butterfly larvae. Native host plants do that. Meanwhile, butterfly bush seeds prolifically and spreads into wild areas where it crowds out native vegetation that local wildlife actually depends on. In several U.S. states, it is now classified as invasive. It essentially lures pollinators in with nectar while replacing the plants those same pollinators need to complete their life cycle. If you want to genuinely support butterflies, plant native milkweed, coneflower, or native asters instead. Those plants actually complete the picture. Number 5. Lily of the Valley. Lily of the Valley is one of the most beloved spring flowers. It has delicate white bell-shaped blooms, a sweet fragrance, and a charming low-growing habit that makes it look perfectly innocent. It is often used in wedding bouquets and cottage-style gardens. Here is what you need to know before you plant it. Every single part of lily of the valley is highly toxic. The leaves, the flowers, the berries, and even the water in a vase that holds cut stems contains compounds that can cause serious heart problems if ingested. This is not a mild warning. It is one of the most poisonous garden plants in common cultivation. For households with small children or pets, this plant is a genuine danger. Beyond toxicity, it also spreads aggressively through rhizomes and can take over shaded garden beds very quickly. It is difficult to eradicate once established. If you want a similar look without the risk, sweet woodruff is a much safer, fragrant ground cover for shaded spaces. Number 6. Japanese honeysuckle. Honeysuckle sounds harmless. The fragrance is wonderful, the flowers are beautiful, and it is often associated with childhood memories of gardens and countryside. But Japanese honeysuckle, specifically, is a different story from native honeysuckle varieties. It is one of the most aggressively invasive vines in the United States. It grows and spreads rapidly, climbing over and smothering native shrubs and small trees. It does not just compete with native plants, it eliminates them. It forms dense blankets of vegetation that block out sunlight and prevent natural forest regeneration. It spreads through both rhizomes and seed, and birds help distribute it into wild areas. In many states, it is on the invasive species list. If you want a fragrant flowering vine, look for native coral honeysuckle instead. It has beautiful tubular flowers, supports hummingbirds and native bees, and stays well behaved in the garden. Number 7. Burning bush. Burning bush is one of the most popular ornamental shrubs sold at garden centers, and purely for aesthetic reasons it is understandable. In autumn, the leaves turn a vivid, intense red that is genuinely striking. But burning bush is invasive across a wide range of the eastern United States and parts of Canada, and its popularity in gardens is actually part of the problem. Birds eat the berries and spread the seeds into natural areas, where burning bush then establishes itself and crowds out native understory plants. Despite being banned or restricted in several states, it is still widely sold in others. If you want dramatic autumn color without the ecological damage, native alternatives like native Fothergilla or Virginia sweetspare give you beautiful fall color and actually support local wildlife. Number 8. Japanese barberry. Japanese barberry is another shrub that is sold almost everywhere and seems like a tough, low-maintenance option. It has attractive foliage in red or purple tones, it tolerates poor soils, and its thorny branches make it useful as a barrier hedge. But Japanese barberry has serious problems that go beyond just invasiveness. Like burning bush, it spreads via seeds dispersed by birds and has invaded forests across the northeastern United States. But there is an additional concern with this plant. Research has linked dense patches of Japanese barberry to increased tick populations. The dense, thorny structure of the shrub creates ideal humid microhabitats for ticks, including the black-legged tick that carries Lyme disease. Studies in the northeastern U.S. have found significantly higher tick densities in areas with barberry infestations. For a low-maintenance, thorny alternative, native hawthorn species or native hollies provide structure and wildlife value without the risks. Number 9. Bradford pear, also known as Callery pear. The Bradford pear was once one of the most planted street and garden trees in America. It blooms in early spring with a dramatic display of white flowers, it grows quickly, and it has a neat, symmetrical shape. For decades, it was considered an ideal ornamental tree. Then the problems became impossible to ignore. Bradford pear has extremely weak branch structure. The narrow branch angles create a tree that is highly prone to splitting apart in storms, often within 20 years of planting. But the bigger long-term problem is ecological. Bradford pear cross-pollinates with wild Callery pear relatives and produces fertile seeds. The offspring are thorny, invasive trees that are spreading rapidly across roadsides and open land in the eastern United States, displacing native vegetation. Several states have now banned its sale. Native flowering trees like serviceberry or native crabapple give you beautiful spring blooms, wildlife value, and structural integrity that Bradford pear simply cannot match. Number 10. Chinese Wisteria. Wisteria is one of the most breathtaking vines in existence. The cascading purple flower clusters are spectacular, and the fragrance is unforgettable. But Chinese wisteria and Japanese wisteria are invasive species in many parts of the United States, and they are extraordinarily powerful plants. The vines grow extremely fast and with tremendous force. Chinese wisteria can girdle and kill mature trees by coiling tightly around trunks and branches. It can tear apart trellises, damage gutters, and pull apart wooden structures as it grows. It spreads both by runners and by seed and can escape cultivation into wild areas where it overtops and kills native vegetation. Removing established wisteria is a major undertaking that can take years. If you love the look of wisteria, American wisteria is a native alternative that has beautiful flower clusters, far better behavior in the garden, and does not carry the same invasive risk. Number 11. Goutweed, also called bishop's weed. Goutweed is often sold as a ground cover for difficult shaded areas where other plants struggle. It spreads quickly, tolerates deep shade, and the variegated variety with white-edged leaves looks quite attractive. Gardeners frequently buy it thinking they have found an easy solution to a problem area. What they have actually done is create a new, much bigger problem. Goutweed is almost impossible to eradicate once established. It spreads through deep underground rhizomes, and even tiny fragments of root left in the soil will regenerate. It crowds out everything around it and spreads into areas far beyond where you planted it. Gardeners who have tried to remove it describe the process as taking multiple years of consistent effort, and many never fully succeed. There is no gentle way to put this. Once goutweed is in your garden, it may be there permanently unless you are willing to undertake serious remediation work. Number 12. Purple loosestrife. Purple loosestrife produces tall spikes of vivid magenta-purple flowers and looks spectacular in wet areas near ponds and streams. It is sold at many nurseries and garden centers, but in wetland environments, purple loosestrife is one of the most destructive invasive plants on record. A single plant can produce over 2 million seeds per year. It spreads rapidly in wetland habitats and forms dense, impenetrable stands that replace native wetland vegetation entirely. This destroys the habitat that native birds, amphibians, and insects depend on. It has severely degraded wetlands across North America and is classified as a noxious weed in most U.S. states and Canadian provinces. If you want flowering plants near water, native blue flag iris or native swamp milkweed provide beautiful color without any of the ecological destruction. Number 13. Chameleon plant, also known as Houttainia. The chameleon plant is sold for its highly decorative foliage, leaves splashed with red, yellow, and green that look almost tropical. It is often marketed for container gardens or as a colorful ground cover. The problem is that outside of containers, it is ferociously invasive. Chameleon plant spreads aggressively through underground rhizomes that go deep into the soil. It is extremely difficult to remove because the roots break easily and every fragment regrows. It will push through other plants and take over large areas of a garden bed before many gardeners realize what is happening. It also has a strong, distinctive odor that many people find unpleasant when the foliage is disturbed. In moist, fertile soil it spreads even faster. If you grow it only in containers with no drainage holes that contact the ground, and do not let it escape. Number 14. Oleander. Oleander is a beautiful flowering shrub. It produces abundant clusters of flowers in white, pink, red, or yellow. It is drought-tolerant, heat-resistant, and grows well in coastal and hot climates. It is widely planted in warm regions around the world and along highways as a barrier plant. It looks completely harmless. But oleander is one of the most toxic plants in common cultivation. Every part of the plant is poisonous: the leaves, stems, flowers, and roots. Even the smoke from burning oleander clippings is toxic. Ingestion of even a small amount can cause serious cardiac events in humans and animals. There have been documented fatalities in both children and livestock. Horses, cattle, and dogs are particularly vulnerable. If you have animals or young children, oleander near your home is a serious risk. Always handle it with gloves and never burn the trimmings. And that brings us to the end of our list. These 14 plants all share one thing in common: they look tempting, they are widely available, and the trouble they cause only becomes obvious after they are already in your garden. Some will take over your property, some will damage structures, some will harm the environment around you. And some could genuinely hurt your family or animals. The best time to avoid these plants is before you buy them. Save this video before your next trip to the nursery so you know exactly what to leave on the shelf. And if this kind of honest, straightforward planting advice is useful to you, subscribe to Plants Theory. We give you the real information you need to make smart decisions in your garden. We will see you in the next one.